order filled.
Alright, what's good everyone? So in this video, I'll be breaking down the two trades I taken. As we can see, the first trade I taken was a loss off a 15-second CISD, followed by a second entry off of a 1-minute CISD, which had ended up playing out completely. Overall, the goal of this video is just to give you guys a lot more insight in regards to how I view the market sense of Power 3 and market maker models, and very specifically Power 3, and we're going to be diving into the Devil's Mark topic, as today, for those who know the concept, was a perfect example of how the Devil's Mark can deliver when it does fit narrative of price. So we're going to be going through everything, first showing the trade recording, followed by a in-depth analysis breakdown from what I posted in the morning, and then after that I'm going to be breaking down every single aspect of what ultimately led up to the trade and all that. So hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you guys after. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed the trade recording. Now we're going to first break down over what I was looking for going directly into New York Open. So as you guys know, I focus on Power 3 market maker models, and you may or may not know, those who are on my server who look at my trades in there, you guys will know that I am also a quarterly theory trader as well. The overall idea behind it is Power 3 tells me time and price. Market maker models tell me price. It overall gives me narrative and overall helps me read market structure. And then what I use quarterly theory for is overall to refine Power 3 and market maker models. Something I referenced to some other people was that it's essentially, quarterly theory is essentially a pack-a-punch for those who played COD Zombies, it's essentially a pack-a-punch for Power 3 and Mark Maker models. It boosts the effectiveness and the overall precision that Power 3 and Mark Maker models can give us by utilizing quarterly theory. So a lot of these terms and concepts you probably do not know. I do teach them all within the server. I teach how to apply quarterly theory to Power 3 Mark Maker models. But to overall summarize everything, we have SMT with the previous day high, SMT with the previous 6-hour high. Now, on top of that, and the most important aspect is that when we look at price in the sense of Power 3, we have overall no manipulation at our current low day. So we have to ask ourselves, what had actually validated price to expand overnight if there's no SMT or manipulation at a lower day? Well, simple, nothing. And that is overall the devil's mark concept, is that our given Power 3 opening lacks, expands one side, but at the bottom or the top of the candle, in the sense the bottom of that candle, the bottom of the Power 3, it lacks manipulation. It lacks any SMT. And that is our devil's mark. There's no, validation for this expansion higher. So immediately, and on top of the fact that we have an overall unbalanced range, because as we can see, as price had expanded higher overnight, every single retracement we had overnight, starting off at market open at 6 p.m., no EQ, no EQ, no EQ, same thing up here, and same thing going into market open. There was no retracement down to EQ. There was no rebalance of the range whatsoever to actually validate price to expand higher. So immediately going to market open, as I posted, is that I will come into today with the mindset of lower before higher. And that was over what I was expecting. I said that YM is likely going to drop to pre-state low just based off of where it is relative to the range, as we already rebalanced the range on YM. We're already trading around EQ. Realistically, YM's going to drop to pre-state low, while NQ and ES return to discount, because ideally we return to discount, we're on pre-state low, form SMT to pre-state low, and then expand higher. That's the overall mindset going into today. And well, that is everything we built off of going into market open. And so going into market open, this is overall what I was looking at. So we'll go back to 9:30, and I'm just going to kind of run through the thought process directly going into 9:30. So some of you guys know, you might not know, but I only enter after 9:30. I never enter prior to 9:30. Why? Simply because 9:30 is the most manipulative time of the day. It's the most manipulative time, and you will get caught up in the last second manipulation if you're entering prior to market open. Like 9 times out of 10, you're going to see market open manipulate again after we already have manipulation. Even if it looks like price is ready to sell off prior to market open, if you do not wait until after market open to enter, chances are you're going to get stopped out before we end up playing out. And I had numerous students fall victim to that because they had entered prior to market open because they thought there was enough confluences aligning together, but they forgot the most important aspect is that it's the 30-minute Power 3. 30 minutes starting at 9:30. We only look to enter after 9:30. If we miss, an initial distribution leg, it's not a big deal. We're just going to play continuation. It's not a matter of what we think is going to happen. It's a matter of playing off certainty, playing off of, actually being safe, because, trading is, for starters, it's one of the hardest things you can do for a career. And to think you're trying to cut corners, try to catch things early, trying to bottom and top tick every single trade, you're setting yourself up for failure. So you have to be patient with these setups. And so anyways, market opens, and what do we see? Well, first thing we do is displace higher. No manipulation lower. Obviously, we get that on YM, but there's no manipulation lower on NQ. It's just an immediate expansion higher. So this, on top of the fact that our daily open had done the exact same thing, we immediately manipulate higher. We are seeing the exact same thing within this 30-minute Power 3. So our daily Power 3 opens up, immediately expands higher. Now we're seeing the exact same thing within this 30-minute Power 3. We open up, immediately expand higher without any manipulation lower. And what do we do when we run up higher? Well, a big thing that a lot of people got mixed up on this run up higher was that, okay, shorts are no longer valid because NQ is displacing higher. But that's not the case, because everything that we're looking for shorts, the unbalanced range below, the SMT stacking up at the highs, that's also holding. NQ is nowhere near, or no, YM is nowhere near the pre-stay high. ES is nowhere near the pre-stay high. We're still holding the SMT the pre-stay high. We're still holding the SMT with the London high. We're still holding that with YM and ES. Nothing actually invalidates price to expand lower now. And on top of us still holding SMT that we had prior to market open, we now just formed a new SMT with the previous 90-minute high. So seeing all these things lined up together, that immediately made me think, okay, this is a 930 Judas swing. I'm going to short. Now, I had entered off of the very first 15-second CISD. I'm not going to go into specifics on what validated me to drop down to the 15-second. And the most simple aspect, I'd simply gone down too early. And, well, I was prepared for that. I was trying to catch, the absolute high of the day. That was my goal with this 15-second CISD. My goal was to catch the absolute high of the day and be a little cheeky. I got mixed up there. I had messed myself up, and it's no big deal. My strategy is not a 100% win rate. I know that losses are going to be a part of it, so I entered there, stop loss at the high, TP at EQ the range. I was looking at roughly a, let's see here, roughly a 1 to 4 risk reward, so not that bad. Pretty average for my system. Looking for a 1 to 4 risk reward here. TP at EQ the range, stop loss at the high, 15-second CISD entry. Okay, enter there and immediately stopped out. No big deal, because what had actually invalidated my confluences for shorts after getting stopped out? A lot of people get mixed up here. They think they're only allowed to take one trade, but logically speaking, when we look at price here, there's nothing that actually invalidates us from entering short again, because look, we're still holding every single confluence that we had going into the morning. Going into that trade specifically, again, even after we got stopped out, everything is still lining up together. We're still holding the previous SMT we had prior to market open, and on top of that, we're still holding SMT, the new SMT that we formed after market open. And now for the cherry on top, this is what confirms me to enter off the next 1 minute CISD back here. This was the confirmation. Look at what ES does. Look at what YM does. They both failed to run out the previous 5-minute high. And Q does. So now we have a cracking correlation with the previous 5-minute high. Now in my server, there's a specific term for that, but again, I'm not going to do anything in regards to quarterly theory on YouTube, but we can just say that it is a cracking correlation with the previous 5-minute high. And from there, that then validated me to enter off of the next 15 or the next 1 minute CISD. Same size. In fact, this time around, I'm risking less than I was on the previous trade. I'm only risking 12 points now. The previous trade, I'm risking 18 points. TP, the exact same. EQ, the range. This time, just in more of a premium. And now look at what we're aiming for. Look at what a risk reward is. A 1 to 8 risk reward. And my system, my strategy, my model, we can see all the way up to a 1 to 12. As you guys know, in my previous video, I covered a trade where we had a 1 to 11 risk reward. That is ultimately what my model can present us and give us in the right situations. And in this circumstance, first trade was a 1 to 4. This trade is a 1 to 8. Entry off the 1 minute CISD. And what do we see? Like immediate sell-off. Now, if you're not looking at the 15-second time frame, that would have been the only trade you would have taken this morning. That was the only valid trade. If you're sticking to the 1 minute time frame, if you're not trying to be cheeky like me and throughout the 15-second time frame at times, boom, the only trade you had taken today was that 1 minute CISD. Now, that's literally all it was. That's literally all it was for the trade. Now, in terms of quarterly theory, in terms of precision, there's actually a lot more that goes into it than meets the eye, but that's simply to add precision and to add certainty. And that's why my win rate is incredibly high, because of the precision that I added with quarterly theory, because it gives me the certainty of reversals. But if you're strictly focused on Power 3 market maker models, that is all the confluences you need for an entry like mine. You just need to enter within the right time, which is 9:30 to 10 o'clock. If you collect data, you can look for entries, after that within the 4 Power 3, but I like to focus on the 30-minute Power 3. Now, let's look at the delivery after that. we delivered all the way down to the pre-sale low. Now, my target going into the day was only EQ the range, even though I knew that price is likely going to return to the daily open. I was only targeting EQ the range. I'm more than content with that. My strategy, my model often delivers between 80 to 120 points, and that trade to EQ the range, that was 96 points. So it's like right in the middle, right the average of what I normally aim for in the trade. So it's like I don't really need to aim for anything more than EQ the range, but we can see the price delivered all the way down to the daily open. And why is that? Well, again, even though the draw was EQ the range, we were still looking for the daily open. Why? Because there's no manipulation, no SMT below it, specifically on NQ and on ES. And well, we delivered below it. And surprisingly enough, I'll be honest, I was not expecting NQ to deliver all the way down to lower day. I was expecting something like this, where YM runs out the pre-sale low. ES doesn't really matter what ES does, potentially doesn't. But ES and Q failed to, YM does. We form some sort of lower time frame cracking correlation around the daily open, roughly around there. Because why? Well, higher time frame is incredibly bullish. The new log we filled at the beginning of the week, we already filled it. Higher time frame is incredibly bullish. There's no, like, when we go into the daily time frame and we look closely, there's no real imbalances for us to trade down into. These down close candles we already traded into. There's no obvious higher time frame PDRAs that are unbalanced, that are unmitigated for us to trade into. So I was really thinking the price is going to continue higher after forming SMT to pre-sale low, and see something like this. We come back down, come below daily open, come below daily open, form SMT to pre-sale low, and then form some sort of lower time frame cracking correlation. So we have that higher time frame cracking correlation, form some sort of lower time frame one, and then expand higher the rest of the day and potentially the rest of the week. And that was kind of my idea for the rest of the day. It didn't really matter to me because I had closed charts after my trade, but I was kind of looking for that. And however, we ended up selling off down all the way to the pre-sale low, and that is specifically on all three indices. So let's quickly go on the 1 hour time frame here and look at what we're given. Yeah, so as of now, there's no SMT whatsoever at the lows. So going into tomorrow, we'll give some outlook for tomorrow. Going into tomorrow, which is going to be Wednesday, July 30th, 2025, if we fail to form any sort of SMT at the lows, so if price opens up at 6 p.m., there's no SMT to pre-sale low, all three of them run below it, or not a single one runs below it. If that's the case, more than likely we're going to see continuation lower going into tomorrow. If on the other end, we do run below the pre-sale low, we form SMT to the pre-sale low, and then potentially another lower time frame cracking correlation down there, like we were looking at back here, then we could be looking for a midweek reversal. And that would overall be the idea going into tomorrow. But keep in mind, with the 3-stage SMT that we have at the highs, the aggressive displacement lower, and NFP later in the week, I would not be surprised to think that this is actually a midweek reversal, and now we're going to distribute lower and kind of rebalance the range below. And not really rebalance it, but more or less manipulate and just run out, sell stops from previous weeks. Because if we look here, to be completely honest, we have quite a bit of low resistance liquidity below us. I would not be surprised at all to see price run below here. Really, do I want to see that? Not at all. I would really not want to see that. I would like for price to continue being bullish on the higher time frame. The weekly time frame, the only thing that could really validate that is the fact that all that low resistance liquidity back here and here, that's all right above a weekly BISI, and that's unmitigated on IQ. So not be surprised to see us come down into there, but who knows? Again, I gave my 2 scenarios going into tomorrow at 6 p.m. whether or not we form SMT to pre-sale low or not. Obviously, I'm going to be posting in my fear alerts and overall explain. Again, keep in mind, my fear alerts is completely free. I post free analysis in there, not as in-depth in quarterly theory, but I still give analysis in the sense of Power 3 market maker models in there. So check that out tomorrow. Otherwise, that is the overall recap of today, and I'll catch you guys all in the next video.